Pay no heed to the nihilist. Whilst they may claim to be nihilistic and may want to dismantle previously stable and highly valued structures and concepts, those that follow such worldviews either don't know the value of what they are actually dismantling, or they do, but their apparent revolutionary alternative is no better than what they tear down, especially in terms of intricate complexity. The alternative will inevitably be too simplistic, poorly thought out, or frankly utopian. However, either way, it could be argued that they are not nihilistic at all, and actually find meaning in the execution of power, but not the power of personal agency or dignity of the individual, because the inherent power in personal agency scares them due to a lack of true self-knowledge and self-awareness, but instead the often corrupted power stemming from the state and Caesarism, and then subsequent submission to it, so long as they remain apparently unaffected and free to engage in the many celebrated vices of modernity. This is a simplification of one of the primary arguments made by French writer Améry de Reincourt in The Coming Caesars. The masses become so worn out, disillusioned, and cynical with politics that they willingly give up more and more control to the Caesars,
who offer to just act efficiently.
The masses accept this as long as their personal lives remain relatively unaffected, but henceforth the liberty they effectively sell is never repaid in full. However, it should be known that the power of the modern state is not legitimate, for it quickly becomes a dominion over nothing, a dominion over those who willingly submit, or over those who eventually will know no different anyway on account of propaganda. To put it another way, in a Machiavellian sense, you are not a true master if those beneath you are already happy in their subordination to you. You are the master if you can prove your superiority time and again in the face of being challenged, either by the crisis of the day or by disgruntled subjects. Yet not just superiority of force or the much documented monopoly on violence, but obvious superiority in your competency of leadership. And it is obvious to anyone with an ounce of intelligence or visual clarity that no modern day leader seems to possess such competence. Technocrats are hardly individuals known for conveying great strength of character or charismatic oratory and magnetism, only archetypal rampant megalomania, likely manifested from years of being basement-dwelling, antisocial, albeit intelligent outcasts. Consider the previously rumoured, ill-fated presidential bid of one technocratic elite. Evidently, just because one has money, that does not make them an appealing leader, and nor should it. However, the apparent divine nature of plutocracy seems to be a sacred assumption of the present day, at least amongst the affluent themselves. They think that just because they hoard wealth, they automatically possess authority, or more precisely, have been anointed and are therefore free from criticism, no matter how valid it may be. The very mention of elections and presidential candidacy suggests that voting somehow still matters, and that the metaverse isn't going to engulf life as we know it soon enough to become the aforementioned virtual playground of liberal debauchery, which is more than likely to eventually occur, if not curtailed. Don't worry about how monolithic the state obviously is. Just leave the physical reality of Sodom and Gomorrah that we currently inhabit and plug into a virtual one, as long as you are content to have every single thought and movement tracked. Not to worry though, all virtual citizens are sure to have the same opinions on all issues. Sounds delightful. Why would one ever want to leave such a paradise? Honestly though, when a child or even an adult is asked who they most admire and who they would want to be, how many people say a technocrat as their first choice? Not many. Sure, they have money, but they are otherwise disregarded in terms of their universal popularity or appeal. A competent leader can invoke inspiration and confidence within those he addresses. If the leader cannot even communicate clearly and effectively at all, let alone when required, then he is no leader at all. Once again, those who constantly seek to deconstruct would argue, who or what even is a leader in the current year? How does one even define leadership nowadays? And once again, these questions can be disregarded. The definition of leadership should never even need to be discussed or stated, but instead seen and felt and hence recognized. It is a historic moment whenever a strong leader announces themselves to the world. They may not be widely endorsed initially, but their will is never misinterpreted. If one is awake to the zeitgeist, one will sense the leader's presence and acknowledge it as at least great, if not worthy. Regrettably, however, it is important to recognize that greatness and goodness are not always synonymous. Greatness is better defined as magnitude of impact, not necessarily magnitude of virtue. Thus, in this context, technocracy is obviously great, but its virtue will forever be questioned.